Hi everyone, I'm Ivan. I'm going to talk to you with Patrick today about one of the main our activities. So we are Relocation.London and we are here to help you to relocate to London. One of the major, I would say, problem or the area of the relocation is that you need to think about education because sometimes this is for your children or sometimes it's for yourself. And sometimes education is the reason for your relocation, so it can work both ways. For this reason, I would like to talk today with senior education advisor, Dr. Fullick. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Ivan.
If you don't mind, let's start and let's talk about your background and mostly about you first. I introduced myself, so I'm representative of the Relocation.London. I'm dealing with all of the stuff like property, education, tourism, transportation, everything. But Patrick solely dealing with education advising. It's very helpful. Let's introduce Patrick.
So great to have the opportunity to talk to you today. So my background, starting off with my university education when I was obviously much younger. My first degree was in natural sciences at the University of Cambridge. Natural sciences covers all of the sciences, that is to say physics, chemistry, biology, although I specialized in chemistry and physics with a little bit of biochemistry. And following my education at Cambridge as an undergraduate, I worked in the oil industry for some years, doing the commercial and technical appraisal of big oil and gas projects in the Far East, putting together proposals for the company's board about projects that we wanted to do. Some of that involved writing computer programs to do the financial analysis for these projects. And during the 1980s, I got very interested in the role that computers were beginning to play in people's lives. And so I left the oil industry at that point. I spent a little bit of time teaching in schools, physics and chemistry, to pre-university students. And then I was appointed to a lectureship at the University of Southampton, where my research was in online social networks during the 1990s. And I was director of teacher education there. I trained physics and chemistry teachers who would enter school. I ran a big project in Moscow at Moscow State University, an astronomical telescope project. And I've, over those many years of experience, developed a deep and pretty broad knowledge of the education system in countries across Europe, and obviously a deep knowledge of the education system and schools and universities here in the UK. I've written books, lots of books for schools, resources, run master's courses, directed master's courses for teachers at the University of Southampton, and I've been governor of a school, an independent school during that time, and an external examiner at universities across the UK. So I've had a long experience of how not just education itself, but how education shapes and changes people and offers them opportunities. It's very interesting to think of education, I think, as a journey. So you have a starting point where you begin thinking about where you are now, you think about where you would like to get to, and you work out the best path between those 2 points. And rather like the sat-nav system in your car, there might be one best route, but you can ask the sat-nav system to come up with some alternative routes, which it will generally do. And that is really the way in which you can think about an educational journey, an educational path. There are always different ways of getting to where you want to be. So if your plans don't work out in the right way, then you can find an alternative way to get there. And I think that's I've always enjoyed throughout my involvement in education and working with students, working with teachers and other professionals. I've always enjoyed that process of working out how to solve a problem and how to find the right route for the particular person or people concerned from where you are now to where you want to be in the future.
Patrick, just before we're doing that, because I feel that you already start to discuss our second point, but before that, on top of what you said, I know that you have children too.
Yes.
So it means that you as a father make this journey for your personal experience.
That's
Talking
right.
about education, and this was, of course, in London.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. This is this is the personal involvement in your children's education is a very important dimension, because that does add another component to the experience. You're quite right, and particularly if you're talking about London as a place to educate children at school and at university, there are some very particular things that are concerned with that, and some very big differences in the education system here in the UK, or between the education system here in the UK and other education systems overseas. So yeah, that's absolutely right, Ivan. Yeah, that has definitely shaped my view of the educational journey for young people, for sure.
And this question is not been planned, but anyway, maybe you would be able to answer it. When you're talking about yourself, it's kind of journey too, because you said you help people to bring them from A to B, for example. Is there any destination for yourself, and why you decide to dedicate all of your life into education?
I think from my point of view, I've always been open to new experiences and new opportunities. And I think for me, there have been various points in my professional life where I've been offered opportunities. And obviously, when you're offered an opportunity, you have to decide whether to take it or not. You have to evaluate, if I stay here, if I stay doing what I'm already doing, what does that mean? If I take this opportunity, what does that mean? And so I think, yeah, there were probably 2 or 3 points that I would say were pretty seminal in terms of my own journey. One of which was the opportunity to become an academic at the University of Southampton. That was a tremendous opportunity which I seized at that point, and that was an entirely positive opportunity for me. Other opportunities have come along as well during my long career. The opportunity to be involved in curriculum development projects, so writing materials and devising new examination courses and so on. Those have been great opportunities, and the opportunity to run and develop this astronomical telescope project that was based in Moscow for many years. That was another great opportunity. So for me, I guess if you cut me in half and take a look at what's written there, you will find kind of education kind of written all the way through. My passion, my interest lies very, very much in the process of the formation of young people, I guess you would say. The process by which somebody grows from childhood through adolescence, which is an enormously important period in any young person's life, through the final processes of education in late teens and early 20s and working out what you want to do with your life. And for young people growing up now, the world's changing really, really fast. So going back to what we were saying about the idea of getting from A to B, really there is no B, or maybe there is a B, but you have to think about what C, D, E, and F might look like in the future.
So on this note, sorry again to interrupt you, I would definitely can say that the B, it's at least for me, it's to invest to education, because I can't remember, I recently had this conversation with someone and we discussed what is the best way to invest money. And I think the greatest way, and I heard this opinion, that into education, because this is going to bring you much more dividends out of that.
Yeah, so that's right. This very old saying, right? I don't know who said it first, but the saying says something like, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Okay. And investing in education is, in my opinion, is always a good thing. And look, for anybody who's a parent, every parent wants their children to have better opportunities than they did. They want their children, you know, we all want as parents our kids to do better than us. That's quite natural. That's a very strong feeling that parents have. And education is the process through which that can be accomplished. So we all want the best education for our kids. We don't always know what the best education is. It can be very, very hard, even for somebody who understands it well. It can be pretty hard to work out what the best choice is. And it's always reliant upon a knowledge of the child. What is best for one child won't necessarily work for another child. So it's really very, very important that people reflect deeply on what they want to achieve for their children, what they think their children want to achieve. And obviously, as children get older, right, they have an increasingly large say in this. A 7 or 8 year old probably doesn't have a huge opinion about what they want to do. They might do. I know when I was 10, I absolutely knew that I wanted to go to university to study physics. That was absolutely what I knew. I think that came about because my parents bought me lots of books that I read as a kid, did lots of science experiments at home, and I was absolutely sure that's what I wanted to do. And that never changed throughout my teens. But I think that's pretty unusual. Most young people have some idea of what they want to do, but they're not absolutely clear on it. And there are many young people that really haven't got a firm opinion. I'm not sure. I like doing lots of things, so I'm not sure what I want to focus on. And the other point to make about all of this, of course, is that the biggest thing here is that, bear with me a second, you don't know what you don't know. Okay, there's lots of things you know. There's things that you know that you don't know, but there's a whole realm of things that you don't know, right? There's a whole world out there that you have no knowledge of at all, and you don't even realize it's there. So that's a very important part of exploring what the future might hold. And of course, the other thing about unknown unknowns is that the world is changing very, very fast. As we're talking here, you'll be aware over the last few weeks and months, the rise of ChatGPT, the language trained AI model, is absolutely revolutionizing all kinds of things that people are doing. And this is just the start of some very, very big changes that are coming. in the next few years. So when you're planning for your future, you know, if you are somebody who is now, let's say 17, 18, 19, the future for young people of that age is really very, very exciting, and is going to change very, very quickly. And there's going to be lots of really interesting opportunities for not just for study, but opportunities to do new things, opportunities for new careers, new jobs, new roles in companies, new opportunities to start businesses. And all of that is really, really exciting. And it's an important thing to have in your mind when you're planning for your future as a young person, and for any parent that is thinking of planning for the future as well. Exciting time for parents as well, you know, for people in their 30s. There are new opportunities opening up, and anybody who's in their 30s, you know, life expectancy is huge now. So there's whole new careers opening up for people in midlife as well. Yeah, there's always lots to discuss when people are thinking about their future plans for their own lives and their children's lives.
And to extend to that, I would like to mention that because we are in London, and we of course know that it's not the cheapest option in terms of education, and because of that, normally we're talking about parents who can afford studying themselves and their children in the UK. It means that they can afford bring maybe even deeper definition to education. Because if we talk, for example, for my experience, my position was different financially, but for the parents who has now much wider abilities, they can bring child not only academics but also make children happier. Because you said, Patrick, that I mean, the better school, the better education, but sometimes we also need to bring a child or even student to university and make this student or child happy. Not all children can be academically good, but one of our role is to make them put them in an environment where they can feel happy. And that's what we can offer now, especially in London.
Yeah, the great thing about studying in, I'm going to call it the UK, okay, but I know that in our, you know, our focus with people that we work with is generally London and the surrounding area, because that is the natural place when people think of relocating to the UK. London is usually where they're thinking of. London is where it's at. And in London and around London, there is, first of all, there's a huge diversity of schools and opportunities. Every school has its own unique character, has its own opportunities. And to give you some examples, you know, if you think of schools in and around the center of London, those schools are within easy reach of all of the theatres, the galleries, all of the things that are going on in the centre of London. I'm going to use another science example, forgive me, but this is a great example. You know, you have in the centre of London, you have the Royal Institution, which is a very, very old scientific institution where Michael Faraday was based and did his work in electricity and magnetism and gave talks and so on. The Royal Institution has talks, has lectures, has workshops for young people and families on topics that are scientific and science and engineering related. The opportunity to become immersed in and involved in activities like that. The National Gallery, only about half a mile, about a kilometre from the Royal Institution, the National Gallery, with an amazing display of art, has all kinds of workshops, seminars, talks about the world of art. All of those opportunities within London are within easy reach and enrich and sustain the sort of intellectual development and personal development of young people. Obviously, within the centre of London, if you're in the centre of London, sporting opportunities are not so great because of the constraints of space. So you think then of schools and colleges maybe around the edges of London, where there is space, where there are opportunities for playing just about every sport that you can think of. Yeah, this journey that we started talking about, right? This journey that we started talking about is punctuated by little stops along the way or vistas that you see from the car, which enrich the academic life that's going on at school. You make a very important point, and that this is absolutely right, that not everybody is somebody who wants to think about purely academic subjects. Academic achievement can be very important. It's often the benchmark for getting into universities and colleges, but many people have a journey that's a slightly different sort in mind. So if you're thinking about, for example, a young person who has creative and artistic talents, whether it's in fine art or sculpture or theatre, the opportunities are here as well. And I think London is such a busy, diverse, interesting place that it's a really great setting. In and around London is a really great setting in which a young person can live their formative years as a teenager and someone in their early 20s, and embark upon a journey that will set them on a course for life, where they've had the best kinds of experiences, the opportunity to meet some of the most interesting people. I think you will know, Ivan, you will remember that there is this very famous saying that Dr. Johnson
I can
came
tell
up.
you, is if you're tired from London, you're tired from life, or something like
Exactly,
that. Yeah.
exactly. If you're tired of London, you're tired of life. Yeah, that's right.
So
The other thing is, you know, that within London, you're within easy reach of some of the most beautiful countryside in the world, and lots of opportunities. And it's such a globally connected city as well.
I try to help any person who need the help, and I know that this is I'm gradually trying to move to our second second question. Is what kind of problems can be when you relocate? Is your help required? Before saying that, again, I would like to mention that London and in the UK can offer also special education for the children who need special education with autism, dyslexia, and other stuff. I know this is very difficult area. My point is to say to our customer that we are here to help. Any question you have, we do our best. So, I mean, the situation can be...
That's exactly right, Ivan. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think one of the benefits of being in the UK and London, let's first of all say that every child has their own educational needs, right? Everybody is unique. So therefore, not every child learns and thrives in the same way. At the University of Southampton, when I was there, a colleague of mine developed, while I was running the master's courses there, I think it's true to say the first MSc, Masters in Science course in what we called specific learning differences there, which were designed to help teachers working with children who have specific learning needs, whether, as you mentioned, it could be something concerned with autistic spectrum disorder, it might be concerned with dyslexia, with dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is like dyslexia, but for mathematics, right? Dyspraxia, which is problems with coordination. The UK has a very strong background in working with young people with these kinds of needs. And therefore, it's a very, very good place in which to bring up children and educate children that have specific learning differences. Yeah, for sure. And we have access to some of the best educational psychologists. I've worked with some of the best educational psychologists in the world here in London. So that is a really important point to make, Ivan. Yeah.
From your experience, what would you, let's take 5 major or 3 major problems where we can help?
Absolutely. The first thing is understanding the system itself, right? Because the UK, let's call it London, has its own way of structuring education, the ages at which children change schools, the way in which you need to go about preparing children for a change in school, entrance examinations, interviews, all of those kinds of things, and understanding the different kinds of schools that there are, the different characters that they have. Some schools are looking for children, are set up for children who are very, very academic and will thrive in a high pressure environment. Other schools are more suited to children who perhaps have less of an academic drive, but parents and the children are looking for somewhere where they can grow and thrive and have a very, very rounded experience, a rounded curriculum. Some of our schools, as people may know, some of our schools are single sex. They are just for boys or just for girls. Most of our schools are mixed, they're co-educational. So those kinds of, that's the first thing that people need to get to grips with when they're moving to London, right? Understanding the whole kind of landscape before they start to zoom in and start to think about, okay, well, what kind of school would I like for my child? And it's important to then plan the journey, understanding what there's examinations for children at the age of 16, then at the age of 18 for university entrance. University admission is a whole other area which is concerned with making applications to universities. It's not just about the university, it's about the course that you want to study. And do you want to have, during your course, do you want to spend a year working for a company, an organization as part of that? And then where might that course lead to when you graduate? So it's, I mean, again, let's come back to the journey metaphor here. It's about understanding how you plan that journey, getting a big overview of the landscape before you start to plot a path through that. And then once you've done that, focusing on each individual step. Okay, so we're interested in this kind of school. What kinds of schools are they that fit this this mold, this criteria? How would I go about getting my child into that school? What about if I've got 2 or 3 children? How do I manage the process for each of those without disrupting the education of any of them? All of those are the kinds of questions that, as you know, Ivan, these are the things that we have to grapple with when clients are thinking of moving to the UK. These are the problems that they face. They're always really interesting problems to solve, and you feel that you are kind of a companion along the journey with clients as they're solving these things. And then the other thing to say here is, of course, that the journey's not over, right? When people come here and the children are in school, there are problems that crop up day to day, week to week, month to month that we sometimes have to solve with children in school where, maybe there are some problems. Maybe they've fallen out with another child and there's a problem with the school and parents are not quite certain how to deal with this. These are the kinds of things that, on a day-to-day basis, as you know, we help with and help to smooth the path along the way.
First of all, we help you to understand the system. The second question is we help to find the best school or university, especially for you or for your child.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And for your circumstances. And then we also help with admissions.
Whole admissions process is something that, as you know, people often need quite a lot of support with. It's about understanding when should you apply? How do you register for a school? You go and visit a school, you decide you like that. Okay, what are your next steps? Okay, that's concerned with registration for the school. Then what do you need to do in terms of preparing your child? There are going to be maybe some entrance examinations. There might be an interview. All of those kinds of things, the intensive preparation for that, for sure, that is absolutely part of what we do. That's a core part of the beginning of the journey.
The next question is how we help our customers to bring them to the right place. When you're saying that you're going to explain about UK education, this means initial consultation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, generally, I find that it's really helpful to have maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour with somebody to start off with, explaining the UK education system, the key aspects of it, and then explaining how that might relate to, or how that does relate to, their child and what they need for their education. So an initial interview, consultation over Zoom, it's such an easy thing to do. It really doesn't matter where people are. That's always easy to arrange. And then the next step, if people want then to proceed to the next step, or when people want to proceed to the next step, is to understand the child, particularly the age of the child, even being as precise as the date of birth of the child, because that determines which school, which educational year they fit into, what they've done so far, school reports, all of those kinds of things. So it's at that point, when you're starting to plan this journey, that you really dig deep into the child's educational history, their interests. How well do they speak English, for example? That's a crucial question. A young child, even a child of maybe 8 or 9, speaking very little English can still fit into the UK education system, but it's a very, very different process thinking about a child like that compared with somebody, a child that has been brought up learning English and has a reasonable grasp of English at that stage. So all of those things are really, really important to understand at the initial stage when you start to think about answering that question, well, what school would I like my child to go to? The most important thing about admissions as part of the whole process of choosing a school or a university is that you've got to think carefully about the child that's concerned, the young person that's concerned, and what your goals are, what their goals are, and what you need, the resources that you have available. Location can also be a very important part of this as well. For example, if you wish to live in a particular part of London, then you have to think carefully about schools that are within easy reach of that. So it's a kind of multifactorial analysis of all these things. And when I work with families to make these kind of plans, I'm always wanting to develop a plan that is the best possible plan for the child concerned. So, Ivan, that people often come and think, oh, I know about the University of Oxford. I want my child to go to Oxford. Okay. Now, that might be perfectly reasonable aspiration. It's a great aspiration to have. It's obviously one of the very, very best universities in the world. But there are certain things that come along with that, right? In terms of the huge question, well, is that actually the best university for my child? Is that somewhere that's going to suit them? So it's not really, it might be a starting point for a conversation, but it's not really a starting point for planning a journey. So one has to get a very deep understanding of the child concerned, their strengths, the areas where they might need to develop, what would be necessary for that child if that is the end point that's desired as far as education is concerned? What are the things that need to be done? And what other things might you want to think about? Because remember, if you're aiming for a very, very competitive top institution like that, there does need to be a plan B, because things don't always go according to plan. So you need to think about, well, what are the other alternatives? And it's very often, I've had this many, many times during my career, both in terms of consulting with clients and when I was an academic. When things don't go according to plan, you need to think carefully about what you're going to do. A very specific example, just in general terms, but quite specific. Somebody goes to university, they don't quite achieve the result that they want. What are they going to do? Okay, that's disappointing because that might close off a careers path for them. Okay, so how could we change that? Maybe there's a master's course at another university that might produce another opportunity. People are sometimes disappointed when at the end of school they don't get into their first choice of university. Okay, that needn't be a deal breaker, because there are always other things that can be done in terms of further study after that. You always have to be open to changing your plans, and you always have to approach life. All of us, I think, have to approach life in terms of saying, okay, this didn't quite work out as I planned, but maybe, being a bit philosophical about this, the universe has got other plans for me, and maybe this means that I need to adapt and change what I'm doing. The key to all of this is having good information and good advice. Well, there's lots and lots of information out there. Google and other search engines will find you a ton of information. The question for anybody is, how do I interpret that information? How do I make sure I'm best informed and then best advised? And I think that's where a good education advisor, that's where the job becomes really crucial in terms of understanding the needs of the client and the young person concerned, and understanding what it is that needs to be achieved and the best way of doing that. So good outcomes lie absolutely at the heart of all this, and being there for people when things don't go quite according to plan, and being able to say, look, this isn't the end of the world. It doesn't matter. It just means that you need to rethink your plans and reshape things, and maybe this is not, maybe this is not the right path, the one that we originally embarked upon. There's also a lot of circumstances where people can go wrong by making the wrong choice of courses. Again, specific kinds of examples would be somebody who wants to study medicine. In order to study medicine at university, here in the UK, many people think that the most important subject to study when somebody is 16, 17, 18, this is the pre-university phase of education, where in the UK, most young people will be studying what we call A-levels, advanced levels. Many people think the most important subject would be biology, but that's actually not the case. The most important subject is actually chemistry, because the body is essentially a big chemical factory. And in order to understand how it works, you need a very deep understanding of chemistry in order to become a good doctor. And pharmacology, obviously, is another kind of dimension of that. So it's really important in making decisions that you make the right decision in order not to close down potential paths that are in the future. Another example, just one more example, would be somebody who wants to study economics, wants to become an economist. Studying economics at school is not important for that, but studying mathematics is. And for the most competitive courses in economics here in the UK, at the two great universities, Oxford and Cambridge, at the London School of Economics, for example, the most important thing is to have a very, very high level of achievement in mathematics and another subject that we call further mathematics here. Top grades in those subjects are absolutely essential if you're considering entry to a university, a top university, to study economics. Lots and lots of things like that. And in many cases, they're common sense, but they're not necessarily obvious. So being well advised about those things, and if possible, obtaining advice well in advance of the point where you have to make a decision, is really very helpful. Now, sometimes that's not possible. People relocate to London, and sometimes they don't have an awful lot of choice or an awful lot of notice. This is something that's done at the last minute. And again, the ability to think flexibly and give advice under those circumstances is very, very important. And that's where we work very hard, you and I, with our clients, to understand their needs, understand what the possibilities are, and to keep open for their child as many opportunities as possible.
Sometimes you come to England, you study 2 years in the school, and then you go to America, or you plan to stay here. So this is very important because the system in the UK, academic system, mostly works for the local people. And then we can explain to you how we can combine your previous education, your current education, and your future education, and with perspective that you're a foreigner, because sometimes you need visa, you need adjust your way, quite unique circumstances. So that's what we're doing. And saying that, I would like to mention that from my experience, I noticed that customers prefer to work with their local agent. For example, if the customers locate in Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, they go to Russian, Ukraine, Kazakhstan agency because they speak the same language. It's easier to go there. But when you approach even through your local agent to British school, you still what's called collide the two cultures, two different cultures. But in our case, when we have Patrick here, so Patrick is represent British part of the culture, and in this case, because Patrick is a third party, so you're not the school, you're not the university, you know the what is called the kitchen from inside, but at the same time you represent the customer, you know, because I think maybe you can correct me, but if I approach to the school, of course the school tell you, any school say that they're the best, they're the good.
Of course.
Yeah. So you don't know. But if you have intermediate advisor who was born in England, who understand all of this kitchen, as I said, from inside, it's always good to have.
It's a big cultural thing. And what you say is absolutely right, Ivan. Yeah, that there is a whole process of intercultural communication going on here when somebody chooses to relocate and when they bring their kids to school here. There's a number of things to say about local agents. Yes, there are huge advantages to working with local agents because, as you say, rightly, they speak the language of the client, they are from the same culture as the client. Something that clients are not always aware of is that many of the local people that they work with in their home country are actually not advisors, but agents, which is to say that they act on behalf of universities or schools and receive, in many cases, a fee from those institutions for placing a child or a young person in that institution. So in that sense, they are not a neutral advisor. They have what you might call skin in the game. It's important for people to understand that because our role is to be completely independent. Our role is to give the client the best possible advice for them, completely independent of any consideration of particular institutions, because we don't work in that way. We are consultants, advisors, and it's our job to give the best advice for each client. The other thing to say is, in terms of intercultural communication, as you say, I love the expression, Ivan, that I know the kitchen from the inside. Yeah, that's a great expression. Yeah, I was born and brought up here. I've lived most of my life here, apart from some spells spent abroad. I'm part of the culture. I've been involved in education for pretty much all of my working career. And I understand the culture of universities and schools here in the UK and in Europe. I understand the way they communicate. Something that is really important to understand is that things that institutions say, people in institutions sometimes need a little bit of interpretation in order to understand what the meaning is deep inside. That's important in terms of selecting and applying to institutions, understanding their culture, understanding what they're trying to say. And there's another very important part of some of the work that we do when people are already here and studying, and parents start to have conversations with schools and universities, that it needs a little bit of interpretation, that the language that they use is specific to the world of education here. And some of the terms that they use and some of the ways that they put things are not always straightforward, particularly if English is not your native language. So the importance of a local advisor is, well, there are two major things here that I've just talked about. One is the local advisor should not have any skin in the game. It should be somebody who will offer you impartial advice. And it's also somebody who deeply understands the system from the inside and can help you as somebody who is relocating here from a different culture, can help you to understand the system and understand what it is that people are saying and what it is that about particular schools or universities, colleges, art colleges, whatever it is, that may help you and mean that this institution is going to be better suited for your child than another institution, even though on the face of it, they seem to look the same.
If you feel uncomfortable with your language, we can provide a translator and any languages. It's very easy nowadays. We have Zoom. We can talk any language actually. So, and it's not expensive. And when you choose your agent, this is again very important point to make. You're trying to make your journey easier. You're thinking about yourself as a parent when you choose the local agent. But I think you need to think about your children first, how to make their journey easier, not your journey. If you have local agents or advisors in the UK, you always know that we are here, we support your child in here. It's very important to have us here in the UK alongside of your child, so we can very fast and very efficient can help you here. And the last point I want to mention that, as I said before, this is an investment. So you invest not only money, but you also invest your time and you invest time of your child again. So please think carefully about time of your child, because the school you're going to place your child into is not going to be repeated. So this is a unique experience and you have to be very careful before placing. I know that you want to make things as quick as possible. So you want to close this question, but please approach to this subject very, very carefully. And because as you know, the schools and the university in the UK very expensive, you need to make a right choice to not spend your time, not spend time of your child and your money.
That's right, Ivan. And I would say an initial conversation with us won't cost you anything. We will very happily spend 20 minutes on Zoom with you, with a translator if necessary, to explain what the options are, explain how our work that we've just been talking about relates to you, how we will work with you, and so that you can have a conversation with us and understand how comfortable you will feel on your journey working with us. So we're very easy to contact. Ivan, you can say something about that in just a second. All the details are there on the website. It's very easy to get in touch. Email, WhatsApp, it's very, very easy. So it's a very, very small commitment from you to contact us for a short initial consultation, and we can explain how we can help you in your particular circumstances. And we're always very, very pleased to help people to make the right choices about their education and their children's education and all of the things that are concerned with relocating to London that are associated with that.
So thank you so much. All details below, and just in case, what is called put the sum up. Subscribe to our channels, and if you have any questions, you can ask them using comments below. Our best wishes to you, and please contact us anytime. We will try to do as much as we can to make you happy. Thank you so much for watching us.
We're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.